A friend WhatsApped me. He said, I'm not sure how you got yourself into Apple products. They're the antithesis of everything you hold dear. They're all about closed source, walled gardens, proprietary technology, or maybe it's an admission that ultimately open source leads to inferior products. Inferior products. Well, my daily driver is still the suckless Arch Linux desktop, though my phone, which I was just reading off, is indeed an Apple iPhone 11 Pro Max. And to edit my videos, I do use this MacBook Pro in front of me. Now, in open source's defense, I reject inferior. There are, unfortunately, a lot of crap open source stuff, but it's an open ecosystem and there's innovation, there's people trying things out. There's a lot of garbage. You need to find your way through it. I have taken up the suck less philosophy, and where I am with the D menu and DWM, it's great. The web ecosystem has enabled me to do my career for the most part, even though the web is just super bloated, but it's still been good and I'm still enjoying it. The developer ecosystem here is great. Why don't I use an open source phone? Well, what Apple does well is that they, I guess, take existing technologies and they create a very polished product. I mean, ultimately, they have the money, they hire the best developers. The best developers are focused on, making sure that this thing boots up and takes a picture quickly, and their mail client kind of works, and the browser kind of works. And for me, it's a great experience. I'm a minimalist at heart, so when there was Android and iPhone side by side, and the fact that the iPhone had like one button, and the Android had like 3 buttons to begin with at the bottom, I knew the iPhone was something more akin to me. I did go through Android G1 and G2 or whatever it was, and then when I got my first iPhone 4S or something, I switched. For their desktop range, I've never switched. I only use this MacBook to edit videos, because editing videos on Arch Linux is just not there. And there's no video editor that can sync video up to audio and handle a couple of 4K streams. I just haven't found it. So if there was a solution, I probably would not use the macOS at all. I'm very happy with the open source thing. I feel it's the best way for your computing freedom. Well, freedom is not, I wouldn't even say, it's more about having control and peace of mind, at least for me. Because when you're in that Apple ecosystem, that's the big problem, right? They think I think they're have that sort of like what you call it? The king is naked. The king has no the king has no clothes. Like, they're in that sort of mindset. They got a bit of Stockholm syndrome going on. iOS, I must admit, is great, but it has some like issues. I find like the way that it updates itself is kind of bullshit still. The way that the whole app ecosystem, if you've ever looked into the App Store, downloaded some games and things like that, it's just the vast majority is just absolute bunk. Honestly, it's terrible. Safari started off really well, but unfortunately they've sort of like dropped the ball with the browser. I mean, it's just a way of coaxing people like me in. It just about does the job, but otherwise it's just crap. So the other clients I use, I could probably tell. How do I do that on the usage thing? It's probably a way. Screen time? Well, the one thing that just cracks me up is Spotlight just never ever seems to work very well here. Like, sometimes it just gives me no results when that sort of D menu thing. My top apps are basically TikTok, WhatsApp, Safari, Instagram, and YouTube Studio. what I'm trying to say is that on my mobile, I'm basically just using YouTube and WhatsApp as a productivity and taking photos, I'd say. And as for like a work getting done thing, no, I'm not using this really. No way. The developer experience, or for getting stuff done, for me at least, macOS is just an added craziness for me. Like the fact that the brew is great in the sense that it fills a gap, but it's not done by Apple. It's slow as hell. Ultimately, macOS is BSD based. They don't have important developer tools like containers, Docker. Doesn't run natively on there. It has some weird abstraction going on. I mean, I can't trust it. When you want to port to macOS, it's an absolute pain. You basically have to buy their hardware. I don't know if you can get it in the cloud nowadays. I don't think you can. I mean, it's a joke. And on that, there was a Hacker News thing a couple of weeks ago where it was only like recently someone noticed that the binary start times are just crazy slow because every binary is like notarized or fingerprinted by Apple. The whole developer experience on macOS is just insane, and that's the developer experience. The hardware is also a joke. The keyboard, this late 2016 one, the battery's bloated. I've had a lot of problems with their hardware, in all honesty. Lenovo ThinkPads have been less of an issue, but of course, the resale value sucks and some things go wrong from time to time. Let's talk about the new Mac hardware. First off, Louis Rossmann pointed out this T2 chip, which looks like a disaster. If it fails, it's kind of complex. Apple are going for a more vertical, control of their hardware using their own silicon instead of Intel. I mean, great. Hopefully it translates to, cheaper hardware or something. But from a developer point of view, and my experience with working with ARM is that you have to target the SoC, you have to target that particular ARM chip, compile your machine code, compile your code for that particular architecture, ARM v8 or v9. Otherwise, you really don't get the benefits out of it. And you have to, you need to, with ARM, I generally, in my experience, you do generally need to take more time targeting, and there's a lot of fragmentation or whatever it's called in the ARM ecosystem. Compare that to Intel or x86 where there's pretty much binary compatibility, for want of a better word. You can take an old x86 binary and run it on a new x86 chip. That's pure joy, in my opinion. And with ARM, I feel that promise is kind of broken. It might run to some extent. You can probably like transpiler or emulate or something like that, but the performance has dropped. So I imagine that for certain applications, ARM will be fine. I mean, Apple have the resources to make Final Cut Pro 10 work great on ARM. And you know what? I might just buy one of those devices just so that I can edit video pain-free. But for other apps, for third-party developers, I think, dude, you're setting yourself up for a lot of pain and misery, because it's going to be very hard as a solo developer or a small business to get really good user experiences. So do you want to be a sharecropper on Apple? Or do you want to perhaps start a business doing some web application where you have, some sanity and independence? I think you're still better off doing a web application. So Apple hardware, I mean, it can be quite good and the design can be great, but I don't think it's a game changer. I think ultimately, I would have written off PCs about 5-10 years ago. Like it was horrible. But I think PCs are back in a good place where you have like competition between Intel and AMD. And this is where I think the competition, the value will come. So I would rather be in the x86 space going forward when it comes to desktop machines. So this whole Apple Silicon stuff, I'm not bothered. Seriously, it's like, whatever. Go for it, dudes. Just want to also mention that if you've ever installed Steam on macOS, oh my god. It like an alarm bell starts going off in my head. The gaming experience on macOS is just god awful compared to PC. So if you think your Mac can do everything, you're wrong. It's absolutely terrible value for money for gaming. Don't do it. I would only buy a Mac thing for basically video editing and doing some photo stuff, because the video editor works really nice. Otherwise, it's kind of bullshit. Sorry. Apple on mobile has been a better experience. I mean, I do really like my iPhone, but the AirPods, I mean, I'm on my third AirPod, so and these things are expensive. So is their hardware good? Not really. Could do with some improvement. Will I switch to something like Android? I might, but I see this as a consumer device, and it just does the job for me. So I don't think I'm really bothered about using Android on my phone. Six months ago, I would have said that like the privacy promise from Apple is what keeps me here, as opposed to Google. But the fact that they don't end-to-end encrypt backups makes me say that that's bunk. So ideally, I would have a phone that is in my control. There is this like suckless phone thing, but I still don't think they're going to get to the sort of like super polished experience that I need this thing to be. Like on my Arch thing, it does break from time to time, but it's kind of easy to fix it. I mean, it's like a, how can I describe it? It's like, this is like a woodworking desk or something. It's just a way of me working. Arch doesn't really break, but if it did, it's pretty easy to fix, and I usually learn something when I fix it. But when I'm out and about with my phone, I really want a polished experience. I don't want any trouble whatsoever. So this is why I like this a lot. And unfortunately, that sort of polished experience of open source hasn't got to the phone yet. How can it get to the phone? It's a difficult one. I said that for another video. So to conclude, my friend was poking fun at me, saying that this proves that open source is inferior. Really, I don't think so. I mean, I think Apple is good for certain things, that polished experience for certain use cases. But normally, I really don't care for their offering. It doesn't really interest me. I think open source is where my heart lies and where the most fun is to be had, where the community is. And I will continue to be a happy open source advocate. Is Apple software better? Please, no. I mean, macOS, the fact that Spotlight doesn't search things properly, and these problems have been since, and it can't update very nicely. These problems have been around since day one, and they still haven't really figured it out. So no, their software isn't good. Is their hardware all that much better than Lenovo? No, not really. I'm sticking with ThinkPad. The keyboard, the bloated batteries on this Mac, I mean, it's a joke. So no, their hardware is not better. I think if you're a consumer, you can't really go wrong with Apple. Though there's some great competition, like with Chromebooks and things like that. I wouldn't buy a MacBook Air for my mother. I would definitely get her a Chromebook in 2020. So Apple is a good thing for a consumer or for certain tight use cases like video editing. But otherwise, I think PCs, AMD, Intel, and that open architecture, PC compatible, and open source is what's going to take us into the future, in all honesty. If you think I'm wrong, or if you can think of some better points, please put them in the comments below. Enjoy independence and peace of mind, and stop being a sharecropper, you Apple developers. Bye guys, please like the video and subscribe. That's it for me.